So formally, hello, everybody. As Darren has said, Representative Pedersen will be joining us in about 10 minutes, actually just 5 minutes from now. So what I suggest is we go as we were planning in terms of talking first about the updates, because he and I have reviewed this recently. So I'm going to put into the chat, I hope this works, the timeline of sort of where we are and everything, which is a way of doing an update as well. Hope this works. Yes, I think it did. There. It's not in a nice chart form, unfortunately, but anyway, there you've got it. So let me just talk this through quickly. Is so we're almost at the kind of the end of our production mode here and entirely into our engagement mode. The PowerPoint presentation that I know we've all been working on and we all want to go out, it is ready to go out with one caveat. As we have finished this out, due to just kind of the way the activities work, we had to shift how we did that final activity. It turned into a certain, you know, when we looked at it all together in August, there was a lot of ideas about how to fix it. Darren tried a lot of different things. We went back and forth on a lot of different things. We settled on something, realized it didn't work. And so frankly, we probably would have just gone with it anyway. But since we're meeting today, I think we're going to show you, we'd like to show you that last activity. And the one other thing that shifted that's substantive is just some slight changes on the trade-offs, which I know is very important that it get worded right. So since we're here, we thought we would go over that as well. We'll do that at the end. So that's on its way out. The teacher survey, which we locked up a while ago, is going out October 1st. Today, you have a draft of the parent survey, parent public survey, which we'll discuss. And the idea would be to get a draft, you know, a revised draft of that out to our to the full board next week, and then to get it out to the universe of the public the week on October 11th. I think that's 2.5 weeks from today, if I'm counting right. Our engagement is, you know, ongoing for those who have done it, but will continue through October and November until the vote. As soon as we start to get these surveys in and they're beginning to come in, Darren will be compiling them into sort of some summaries that we can review. At the October public meeting, we will have sort of a final substantive discussion of this with a couple of speakers, and we'll talk about that. That's on our agenda. Another key date is November 3rd. That's the November working meeting. And at that, we'll sort of circulate to everybody and we can discuss in sort of a sharing form, sort of what we all have learned from our principal interviews, what we've been learning through our engagement. And we'll also have these surveys to talk about. One question is about the timing on the parent survey. So I want to come back to that. In other words, how long that should go out. And we'll also at that point need to be talking about our draft recommendations and then the vote on November 16th. So let me just start with that. And just see if anybody has any questions, thoughts, comments on that. Or if that all seems fine. Yep. Fine and dandy.
Sounds good.
All right. Okay. So, all right. So next is the speaker is to talk. Wait, did I do PowerPoint? Yeah. So let me ask one question about the parent survey. So if we put that out in there's sort of a trade-off here, and I also want to get Jacques in on it, but let me just throw it out now. So if we put it out October 11th, we can get it back in time to have the results initially compiled for our for the November working meeting, which would be nice to have that as part of the discussion. On the other hand, the other part of me sort of feels like you'd like to kind of have that out while we're all out doing our engagement sessions. And that would mean we wouldn't really have the results. We'd only have partial results by the time of the November meeting. I know that's a big deal, but anybody have any thoughts on that?
Ruth, I'm sorry. Can you repeat what you want us to weigh in on? Having what results
Yeah,
from
so
what
when-
for the
so we
engagement?
Yeah, we can the parent survey will go out around October 11th. And then we could either close it after about 2.5 weeks and have the results largely ready for discussion at the November working session. But that means having it shut down while a number of people are still out doing their engagement meetings. So we could also just leave it open until a little bit later, or I guess we could do both. Actually, we should probably compile. Okay, here's what I would propose is that we compile what we have, so it's part of our discussion at the November working session, but then we can also keep it going so that when we actually head into our vote, we'll have a fuller amount. So that's my thinking.
Got it.
So if everybody agrees with that, we're good. All right. So speakers for October public meeting, I really want to wait for Jacques on that because I know he has a particular idea on that. So that brings us to the parent survey. So I suggest we start on that and he can sort of kick in. Let me just say, so this is a this is a draft, obviously. It's based on some conversations we had, I think late last spring. At some point, I think Darren did an iteration, I did an iteration. We checked it with some other sort of parent types. And then frankly, it sat for months while we did other things that had to come first. And so this is sort of the first time any of us has revisited it really since then. So it's at one level, it reflects a lot of thought, and at another level, it's early in its stage. What I hope is that, I know y'all just got this last night, and I apologize for that. I'd hoped to get it out earlier this week, but I still thought it would be worth getting it out, having any initial discussion people want to have. But we don't have to finalize it today. I'd like to get everybody's comment maybe by end of the weekend so we can revise it, get it out to the members at the end by the end of next week so we can get further input, and then off it goes. So
Ruth, I'm sorry. I'm going to do my best, but it got sent at 10:42 last night and I am going on vacation tomorrow. So I can't promise to have much of a chance to weigh in if that's the timeline. I'm on vacation all next week.
Well, what I would suggest is, I mean, hopefully it isn't way off. And if you think it is way, if you could do a run through, and we can talk some about it now, and then if it seems way off, let us know, and we'll just hold it back. Hopefully that's not the case, but we can do that. I mean, but can we talk about it now? How about this? Why don't we take 10 minutes now, especially as we wait for Jacques, let everybody just read it, and then let's come back and have some discussion. See what the issues are or not. Does that work for people? All right. All right. So it is 4:42. How about if we can go off camera, we can do whatever, and come back at 4:52, and then we'll talk. And everybody has it?
Yes.
And Carlene, are you hearing all this? I just want to make sure you're in here.
Yes, I'm listening. The information is in the email box.
Yes, the survey went out last night.
Okay.
Should be in your email. If not, text me or Darren. Okay. Until 4:52. Shoot. Okay, folks, who's ready to come back?
We're here.
Okay, and Jacques, you're in?
I am here. How are you
All
guys
right.
doing?
All right. So the one intro that Jacques, you didn't hear is the parent survey. We had talked about some general ideas on this way back in the spring. At some point, there was some iteration of it. You know, I know it went through Darren and me, I forget. Anyway, and then we also
I looked at it. Mhm.
Yeah, and then we showed it to some parents. Anyway, it then sat there for a number of months.
Mhm.
And I just sort of pulled it back out. So what we're looking at is something that was sort of thoughtfully done a number of months ago. But here we are, and the idea is we're going to look at it now, see what people think, make sure the arguments are right, because this matters a lot, as we've all noted. And then we can do some revisions. People don't have to get everything in today. You just got this last night. Ideally, people would respond by Sunday night. Jessica's going to be gone. So partly we just want to see where everybody is, and that's where we are. And so we took 10
Okay.
minutes out to do it. And here we are. Okay.
Okay.
So who would like to start?
This is Carlene. I'll start with, because mine is pretty short, just in the section asking about, what was the language about, like where or how people get information, how parents get information from schools. Let me see. 1 second. Though,
On number 9.
let me go up to 9. 6, 7, 8. For each one in case you like to provide information. No, not that one. Are you familiar with the star rating used by district to rate schools? Do you use star rating? Part 2, use and familiarity with the star rating 6 and 7.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I'll be curious what information they are using. And like, are they using my school DC? Because I don't know if like people just say, you know, star rating, people could be going certain places. Like my school report card, I think is the one. It's 2 websites that I think essentially you can get that information, maybe. But I don't think people necessarily know that's a star rating. Maybe they're not. They might just be interested to see where they're getting information from.
So could we say something? Do you use the star rating or go to My School DC? Would that be a way to do that? Or you
Yeah,
specifically want to know where did you see the rating?
or maybe like where do they just get information about? So say, are you familiar with this star rating by the district to rate its schools? So that number 6 would be a yes or no question. And then maybe a follow-up question to 6 could be, you know, where do you get information from? About school ratings or, yeah. That was all I had.
Okay. Next.
I'll chime in.
Okay.
I think this is too long. I think there's too much here. I think parents are being inundated by surveys of all kinds, and this is asking a lot of time, which may produce selection bias in our results. We will hear from parents who love the rating or hate the rating, but I do not think we are going to hear from folks who are, you know, man on the street, woman on the street.
Mhm.
My sense is especially that's going to be true for part 3, question 8, where we have a long list of things that we want people to judge on 2 dimensions. How is it important in selecting a school? How appropriate it is for judging the quality or effectiveness. That quality effectiveness is, I know, something we've discussed before, and we've landed on, you know, the duality of that, of the way we put it. But I think for a parent, I wonder, like, whether they get through the entire list on both dimensions. I can imagine them feeling really good about deciding on whether they use it in selecting a school for their child. I also don't know how this is going to look visually. So I know before we've done it sort of side by side. Again, I'm just being mindful of how much we're asking of parents at the moment.
No, it's totally fair, totally
and
appropriate.
the complexity of it. So that's my concern. I don't really have any concerns about the specific language in any of the questions. It is really just this feels like a lot.
So just looking at the list, I worry about losing the duality because I do think, there are these two things that we want to be cognizant of, that people use this partly to pick schools, even though that's not its purpose. So we don't want them to do that. We need to understand what's important to them so that we can make sure that's provided in some other way. And we want to understand what people regard as quality. Seems to me those are fundamental. And I'd hate to lose either. I also think it's long. I wonder, I guess I'm just sort of thinking, if we could offer, pick one of these two to answer how you pick a school or what you think is quality. I don't know. Or, we could take a hack at some of these questions. I mean, one thing is I do think we could take out the high school ones. They're very specific. I mean, as the four-year high school graduation rate has to be their period. So, so that's one thing, is we could just take that off. And I wouldn't have a problem with that, which would cut it by, a quarter. Any thoughts on what to cut? What do we need to cut? Do we need both of them? I mean, we also might be able to, maybe we should,
And for me, I'm still like reading through it. I apologize, you
Okay.
guys, that I
All
got
right. No,
here a
no,
little
that's fine.
late, but I'm still going through it. And thanks,
Okay.
Darren, for putting it back at the top of my emails and stuff like that. So, give me a
No,
walk.
it just went out.
It is a lot.
Ruth, I'll offer one more thing while Jacques is still reading. So I wondered, in the way we're displaying the report cards, and I think I never thought about this before, but I just had to look at Illinois' report card for a client. We're saying DC and some states provide a summative rating, others provide information but not a rating. Mm-hmm. And on the Illinois report card, we make it appear as though there's no rating, but there is a rating. They do give a summative rating. Is there a reason we don't point that out?
I think what is true is that the rating is not on the front page. When we talk about the specific slides, when in the slideshow, we talk about that they have a rating, but they don't highlight it on the front page. And here you make a good point. We don't give that detail, and so that could be lost. I think the point is, and we do this. Oh my goodness! All these documents are they're just merging in my mind. Oh, I know. In the final activity, which we're also going to show you, we make the point around Illinois of it's not about the rating, not rating. It is about that they make the comparisons on the demographics. They make the comparisons on they compare your school to the district, and they have the climate stuff, which is sort of unique to them. So that's why it's there on the slideshow. To your point, I guess I wouldn't really mind taking it out of here because it doesn't.
I have a question as you're pondering that, Ruth. Jess, as you're advising that other group on theirs, how do you suggest that they get to the 5% that they must report? You know, if you don't have a rating or whatever the case, can you give me some insight of how you're advising them on that, how we identify that 5%?
I mean, I'm not advising anybody. You're asking me what I would
No,
advise.
I'm asking Jess.
Oh,
I'm asking
okay,
Jessica
okay,
as a consultant to
okay.
the other group, because I want to understand, because that is as a requirement that we do identify those who that 5%, and that somehow, and I don't know how you do that without a rating. So that's why I was asking another question.
Well, so to be fair, I'm not advising anyone on how to do it, but I was working with someone who's asking me to research schools in Illinois.
Okay.
But my, and this is my perspective on report cards, which I know is not everybody's perspective on this committee. I don't think it would be appropriate for DC to only identify and categorize 5% of our schools. I know that's the federal minimum. I think that we should identify where all schools stand in relation to state expectations. So, for instance, the way Illinois does that is they have a summative designation, which is whether a school is for comprehensive support, targeted support,
Okay.
or a school is commendable. So they
That
don't
makes
use
sense.
stars or percentages, but
Mhm.
they still label a school, and they do it for all their schools. So I think no state, my opinion is no state should only identify 5% of their schools publicly with a label. Everybody deserves to be told where they fall in relationship to state expectations.
Mhm.
And that means schools themselves, the districts they are part of, and parents and community members.
And I kind of like that, and I would love to hear Carlene also chime in. I kind of like that for the simple fact that, what I've always worried about, even when we did this the first time, is East of the River schools having a bad kind of like, they're all 1 stars. The narrative that comes out of East of the River and stuff like that, that sounds a little bit better, you know, because it's more qualitative as opposed to quantitative, which the stars are. So I'm open. I'm the kind of person, I told everybody from the beginning, I'm open to seeing what this looks like, as long as it doesn't indict schools that are doing the very best they can with the resources that they are allocated, as opposed to indicating where there needs to be more support. So I appreciate you adding that, Jess, that narrative. That's what I was trying to get to.
Yeah, happy to.
I have a thought on that. Carlene, do you want to jump in?
I don't have anything to add at the moment.
So my response on that, in part, Jacques, would be, if the goal is to identify the schools that are the lowest performing 5% per the law, I would use some very particular metrics for it. So, for example, if all we're doing is identifying 5%, I would really want to, then first of all, then I wouldn't mind looking so much at proficiency, because if you're just saying who really needs the help the most, schools with low proficiency, that's a reasonable way to look at it, as would be growth. But I don't think you want to look at 10 different things. Whereas for all the schools, if you're trying to show some strengths, the strengths, and you're trying to show where there's issues and give a fuller view, it's a different problem. It's a different question, which requires, I would say, a different response. So in the one case, yeah, you're gonna rate, you're gonna do it, you're gonna identify the bottom 5%, in a way that's a rating of the 5%, and you're gonna do it strictly, say, on proficiency. But then for the whole city, including the 5%, there's a lot more that you want to know. You want to know about, do the kids feel safe? Do the kids feel that their teachers care about them? Do the parents feel welcome? What's the growth rate? Do they have a well-rounded curriculum? Is everybody on, to what extent is everybody on target at first grade? Because that is something that it doesn't tell us a lot about the quality of a school, because in first grade you haven't experienced the school. But if everybody's very far behind, or a lot of people are very far behind, it tells you something about the needs of a given school. So that's my shorter response is I would look at them very differently. How do you identify the 5% versus what do you do for everybody? into mine.
Okay.
But it's a good question. While we continue to ponder the length and other things, let's go to number 5. This is the views on the rating. And what we tried to do there is just, capture my sense of what are everybody's best reasons for wanting the rating, not wanting the rating. And so if everybody thinks it looks fine, then we did a good job. But I think it is something that people really, we should spend a moment on. Are there reasons that are missing that should be there? Are there reasons that aren't well stated, so they don't adequately capture why people might be for or against one or the other? And if it all reads well, that's a plus, not a minus.
I mean, I'm fine with everything else. I do have the same sentiments about length, but I mean, I think.
Say that again, Carlene. You had to.
Yeah, I said I'm fine with how everything is written. I did have the same sentiment about length,
Okay.
but I mean, I can't really nitpick and find anything that needs to be added to those questions.
And Carlene, I just, I want to make sure that this really reads well, and for those who need it to read well, east of the river, parents and stuff like that, it's because of the schools that we have and how they've been rated in the past. So you're feeling okay and stuff like that. You're just more concerned.
I think it's going to be one of those situations that we should probably do a few and then be prepared to pivot once we see how the survey goes and responses. I would just recommend, as much as possible, provide open-ended questions to let folks kind of, talk it out, describe certain things, and then it just may be some just common things that you have to pull out. Yeah.
So one thing, let's put at the very end, comments. And that's one way to do that.
We might, again, I just recommend, is this being done the same way as how we do with the principals, like you're selecting 3 principals, or is it going to be a bunch?
No, this is a general survey.
Okay.
This will go out on social media. It'll go out to parent groups. It'll just go out.
I recommend piloting with a parent group or 2.
So by pilot, do you mean like have some people, a few people that would
do
different
it.
views and knowledge base, just to sort of look at it, see how it reads?
Yeah, do it in real time, see how the interview runs, or see how the survey runs. Does it make sense? Does anything hold them up? Does anything spike their interest or not make sense? Yeah, it doesn't have to be like full drawn out, but I just know that, we have blind spots to this work.
I know, I think that's basically part of the plan, but you've made it more explicit, so that's good.
It's kind of funny to me. I'm over here laughing a little bit as I read 13, because I don't even need to ask this question, because you know how it's going to come out. I believe that the star rating conveys a complete picture of my school's quality. That's kind of like a loaded question. That's kind of like a build consensus that it needs to be something different other than, a star system, because we know most people don't believe that it conveys what it needs to convey. But I understand the question.
I'm wondering too, then, based on what you just said, Jock, do we at all, and I'm not looking at the survey at the moment, do we at all encourage in the survey for parents to go look at their school's rating?
You got a good point, because a lot of people don't know what their star rating was their school.
Yeah, because it might be like just a learning moment, like put the link. I'm not sure, is it My Schools DC or My School Report Card? See, like, can't even tell you.
And
For
it's the
sure.
report card thing. You go to the you go to the
The
Yeah.
DC report card with your school name.
and that's what
Yeah.
you click and it pops up.
So yeah, just put the link there. And I think maybe just have a question to encourage them to maybe that end part or something, encourage them to go look. I'm not gonna say 100% sure that, you know, people going through a survey and trying to get it done will actually click it. But I think if a question prompts like, okay, go to, you know, DC report card and, you know, look at whatever, does it, you know, reflect? Now it's also going to, again, stretch out the time it's going to take for someone to do the survey. But I'm just wondering if somebody might open it up and not realize that, like what we're talking about.
You know, and that raises a really, really good point. I appreciate that, Carlene. I think sometimes when we deal with East of the River, we always talk about it like in a deficit, as if our parents don't, don't do certain things or won't do certain things. And I think by adding that aspect, because they will research, they will look at stuff, they do want to understand that. Now, it may not have been high on their priority list beforehand, but if we're doing something that's talking about their school, I think they do those type of things. So I think putting a link in is very smart for them to, and it's an educational tool at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, because we even had the one mom, and actually, Jock, when you mentioned that, we had that one mom. We actually have a data point for that one. We had that mom who came to the State Board of Education meeting a few months back, who I think their child went to Lecky, and she said it was a website that was totally not associated with DC government that was doing ratings. And she cited that as school rating and quality. So yeah.
So Darren, could we do that? I mean, can you imagine how that could be? I mean, I think it's a good idea. The question is it feasible? And I feel like we've gone through a lot of these feasibility issues that have really stumped us. But do you think we could do that, Darren?
Have a link that parents could look at and go to?
Well, I mean, I think it would be like a link to, I guess, that place on the DC report card where you can just write in your school, and then it would take you to that school.
To that particular school.
Yes. I could set it up in a way where it wouldn't redirect them out of the survey. There is a chance, I'd have to say, that some people might drop off this, like we wouldn't have certain people complete the entire survey if they go down the rabbit hole of doing that. But I mean,
You put it as that last question.
Like Carlene said, this could be a learning moment for them as well. So it just depends on just having that in mind, that some might drop off, but it wouldn't take them out of the survey. So in some, yes, that's possible.
Could
and,
we?
and Darren, could you, like a lot of surveys do or something like that, if they go into it and then decide like, okay, I've looked at it or whatever case may be, and they kind of stop, could it say that you haven't finished your survey or something to that extent? You know what I'm saying? Like a lot of times they'll say, you forgot this red area, you forgot this particular question. Is that an option, or is just that? I don't know.
I'd have to look and see. Offhand, or right now I'm not.
So I'm kind of saying like, so that would prompt them to go back.
No.
And I know this is lengthy and we're asking them to do a lot of research, but I do really think that it's important specifically for those who need this to work for them, that it is a teachable moment.
I'm gonna say I don't think that is an option through the survey monkey, that what we've used in the past. If it's not, maybe building in a question or building in something right above the link, just saying, we know you might want to go down this rabbit hole, but please complete the survey. It's important to get your feedback. Please complete the survey. Just go in and, maybe have a blurb to ask them to complete the survey, and that we value their.
And I know these are all thoughts, but Carlene, I think what we're going to have to do in our positions is basically we're going to have to work with some principals and stuff like that with having parents do this. It's going to be hard to get the numbers that we need. from East of the River schools and kind of have principals kind of, or school leaders kind of help us, like direct parents toward it and say, go in, do a survey for your school, yada, yada. We're going to probably have to do some of that work, just so we get the correct amount of number, or that, an equitable amount of numbers of people to go in and do it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I think, and even like right now, utilizing the virtual PTO posture, if we can get time on people's calendars, because at least, we can cover like a 15 minutes during a meeting or so, at least they're in front of their computers, they can ask us questions while they're doing it. They only have one report card. Well, no, they'll have multiple, possibly depending on how many children in the house. But yeah, I think.
Yeah, because it's easy for me because this is on our radar. And I work at KIP, so all I got to do is give it to our chief academic officer, and she'll get it to all the schools, and then that'll get it all down to the teachers, and they'll go, yeah, go take the survey because we want, our school to do well, and we want to hear what you got to say, and they'll do it. We need some of that same type of support with some of the DCPS schools to do that and make sure, because you have a lot of good relationships, and I have some, so we can work those out.
I mean, the other thing that we can do, and I think we will do typically, is weight it. Like, we'll know how many people are from different wards, so we can also somehow make sure that it's not misweighted. We can make every ward work the same way. Something like that. I don't know what we typically do there, but we do something, I think.
Ruth, the other thing I hope we are careful about is just in thinking about how we distribute this widely. The education councils distributed us parent survey, and they were very clear that that was only for DCPS parents. And they stated that in all of their outreach. So if we are asking ed councils to help get this out, I think we'll also have to ask them to be explicit that this is for all parents, wherever their children go to school. Because I'm a little bit worried that we might also have to think about how we're weighting it if we get an overweighting from DCPS versus charter LEAs.
No, I think that's a good point. I think that the reason the ed councils did that, it was explicitly about DCPS policies. But your point is very well taken.
Yeah, and it makes sense if it was. Yeah. It's just that in Ward 6, my ed council only deals with DCPS. They've been explicit about that. They never do anything for charters. They were very clear when I asked them to consider welcoming charter school families that they have enough on their hands with DCPS. So I just hope we're thoughtful about who else we may use to help us distribute the survey to make sure that we get it out widely.
Yeah,
that's a very good point, Jess, and I appreciate you saying that, for the simple fact, I think, a lot of our education councils, just by the mere way they were situated and made, constituted, that's their first priority. But in this particular instance, with this particular star rating that affects all schools, and I think a lot of them just say, well, they got their own stuff, they got the PCSB and yada, yada, yada. So that's some of their reasoning for doing some of the things that they do. But this particular framework, which affects all schools, we have to make that very blatant and out front.
So all well taken, and I believe Jacques talked with the PAVE folks, with Maya back in the spring, and there was a commitment to participate in pushing this out.
Yeah.
So I think and we will re-up that, and we could go out to, we could give it to the Charter School Council. So all well taken.
And I've talked to some DEC people, which are a lot of our teachers and stuff like that, who are also, very cross-sectional in helping in some ways to make sure the information gets out and that they need to take it.
All right. So I think one thing that we should do, and Jacques, I guess this falls to you and me, and if anybody else wants to do it, they can, is to, along with Darren, to really have a good chat with Malayo, I think, about how to really make sure we get this out and about. All right, now I want to come back. All right, so on the engagement point, we need to make sure we're talking to multiple groups and also talk with Malayo about general push out. I want to go back to the point about looking, being able to find what school you're in, or find out your star rating. So Darren's gonna try to do this. I am hopeful that he can. I will just say, and I'm just so tech nervous at this point. I don't know that we absolutely can in a way that won't really throw this. So what I'd like to say is we'll really try. And the other thing that we might could do, if that's not possible, that maybe gets to half of what you want, Carlene, or maybe it doesn't do it at all, is to at least show, as we do in the PowerPoint, a picture of what that rating looks like, sort of a picture of that report card page. So it's not so abstract. But that doesn't require us to have to be able to link to 200 different schools. Would that help if we can't do the full thing?
I'll list the others first.
What?
I was waiting for others to answer your question.
Carlene, did we lose you?
No, I missed the beginning of your question. So you're asking what before rolling out to everyone else?
No, so what I was saying is Darren's going to try to put in a link so that people can go to their school and see their school's rating.
Uh-huh.
I tend to be phobic and nervous about the tech stuff. So if that's not possible,
Uh-huh.
I think an alternative would be to just show people the page that, as we do in the slideshow, the star rating. So at least they know what we're talking about. It won't be their school, but at least it will.
Yeah, or even like in the instructions, encourage them to look at their school star rating before starting the survey.
Before starting.
Yeah, or and then yes, I think that could be something to help with that. And then Darren, well, that would be really good data, but I was just thinking if people click on like a few of the questions but don't do like the last question, does it just not submit data for the whole survey?
No, it'll show their responses for whatever they
Answer.
yeah,
what
whichever
if they
items
have-
they answered.
So possibly
What
putting that as like the last question. I'm just playing around with
Right.
ways to still get that information, but that we know that people might trail off if they go to another website. But maybe put in instructions in order to you know best complete this survey, refresh yourself, school rating, give them the website and say they have to search it.
Right. We will try to figure out the best way to do this. What I'm worried about at the end is, Darren, wouldn't this be true if people hit everything, then they left the website? If they didn't hit submit, I don't think we would get all the data. Right. Darren, you're on mute.
I'm sorry, Ruth. Could you repeat that one more time, please?
Yeah, I'm just saying, if, to Carlene's question, if people went all the way through the survey and then didn't, and then left to go to the site to see their star rating in their school, if they didn't hit submit before leaving, I don't think we would save all that data, would we?
I think it would be fine. I think that like the principal survey, it just showed responses to whoever started the survey, and
Even if they never submitted?
I believe so. Yeah.
That's troubling, actually. I just want to say, because sometimes I'll start a survey and then I'll decide I don't want to do it because I don't want to do it. And so I assume it's not being tabulated.
Well, I mean, then it would be our option to include those who didn't complete it into the result, like the report.
All right, we will check all this out and try to figure out how to make it work as much as possible to get people to be able to look at their school, and we'll see what we can do.
But one thing they might be able to do is ask them, sort of like a treasure hunt of some sort, of find these elements and come back to the survey and like try to find like the star rating. Okay, what do you think about the star rating? So that it sort of encourages them to return to the survey. So that might be an option.
Yeah, I think that's starting to get complicated, but let's look and see what we can do.
So Ruth, as I'm listening to all this, I have two questions.
Yes.
One is on the timing of this, right? I know we're sending it out October 11th. My question is, what is our plan B if we get to October 11th and we're still realizing that parents are deeply focused on reopening, COVID testing, COVID protocols? And the reason I ask that is because I wonder if it will be hard to get parents' full attention if the majority of traffic we're still seeing is on their present concerns. So that's question one. Question two is, in any data collection, I think there's a trade-off between getting a lot of responses and getting deep responses. I think it's part of the reason Empower Ed has talked a lot about using those like flash polls on phones, because they're fast. So while they don't get deep knowledge, they get fast knowledge. I worry that here, what we might want from parents is broad responses. What do you think of the star rating? And we've designed a survey that is meant to give us deep responses. And then we may have to sacrifice sample size. Like maybe we get 100 parents who want to spend the time on a really deep survey, versus what if we were able to keep it really simple? And could we get more parent responses if we traded off the depth of questions we went for versus getting lots of responses from lots of parents?
So two responses. First on the what if parents aren't interested because they're focused on COVID? I mean, what I would say on that is, if that really turns out to be a problem, let's come and revisit it. What I think is always going to be true on this issue is, it's a wonky issue. It's never going to be top of mind for anybody. I mean, 2 years ago we talked about it, and there was a different reason for maybe this isn't the right time to take it up because of this or this or this. It's never going to be the perfect time. It's never going to be the thing that's most on people's minds, but we have a responsibility to, make some recommendations in a timely way so that when it comes out again, it's more helpful than it is now. And depending on who you talk to, less damaging, however you want to say it. So while yes, I agree, if it's really a problem, let's come back to it and we can reconsider timelines. But I
want to be the skunk at the garden party one more minute on this, because I know I am the skunk at the garden party in this committee on this front.
No, you're not. But anyway, that's funny though.
But here's where I'm thinking about this. 2 years ago, we had a star rating. We haven't had a star rating in a year. We're not having one this year. We don't know if we're having one next year. We don't have 2 years of data to put on anything. So we're asking parents about something that is at best amorphous, because the last rating they're looking at is 2 years ago, and we can't promise them when a new one will happen. That to me is not just about COVID, but it's also like, why should I care about this thing that actually is not impacting me at the moment? And it's unclear when it will impact me in the future. This is a very hypothetical thing at the moment. So again, and I say that not to say like, let's just throw the whole thing out, but maybe that suggests that we want more answers from more parents with less depth that gets a
well, that I don't disagree.
Okay.
So let me get to that. And let me just say, you're right. We're not going to have a star rating immediately. It's not exactly clear when we will, but there's a long timeline on this. And if we want to be able to be in a relationship with Oceana and to continue to have public engagement, we can't keep putting it off. So that I'll just say that's, we can, so that would be my view, unless it was really severe, just to note. But I agree with you on the broad and deep thing. So let me pose two things. One thing I didn't do, and I wish I had, is I don't even know how long this is, but how many minutes, but whatever. Two thoughts I have are, one, and here, Darren, this is partly a technical question, but one of the long ones here is this part 3, which Jessica raised. I mean, what if we took out the high school stuff and then divided it in 2, and every other person would get one form, we'd have a form A, form B, so that people are only getting, one or the other. So that's one way to cut it. The other thing that I would ask and then I want to come back to the states, is, in this last part, in part 5, it's an effort to try to capture everybody's reasons, because I think we all wanted, we all to some extent think, oh, I think people really believe this, or they don't believe this. And it's sort of our chance to sort of check that against reality. But if there are, I would ask everyone to go to part 5 and just, is there one or more of these that really doesn't matter to you? And if we have a consensus on one or more that really doesn't matter, maybe we could just get rid of it. I mean, it's only 4 of them, but they're longer, they're more thoughtful. So that might be a, does anyone have a thought on that when they read them? Can we go to there? Can people go to part 5 and just see if there's something in that list of 10 to 13? That people think we could live without?
If I had to pick, I would pick 11 as the one to keep. And if you wanted to keep more than one, I would keep 10 and 11.
I'm still reading.
Okay.
I am too. Give me a sec.
I appreciate everybody's engagement. And on the one hand, I am sorry that I didn't get this out earlier. On the other hand, I have to say it is, to be able to have the time to just jointly read this and talk about it, I think is, I'm finding it very helpful and healthy and productive.
Just say what you said again about the numbers that you were talking about.
So
That
in
is-
part 5, it's questions
Right.
10 to 13.
Uh-huh.
It's, each of these was in its own way an effort to try to reflect the arguments that people have made to us, that we have made to each other, that we hear from our constituents. That here's the reason why I really want a rating. Here's the reason why I really don't want a rating.
Right.
And, it's, that's why it's there. I mean, definitely a lot of these are arguments I care a lot about, but I think people should, if there's something here that everybody thinks isn't that important, we could.
Yeah, I mean,
That-
13 and 14 could go.
Well,
saying
they're
13
the
and 14?
same. 13 and 14 are the same, by the way. That
Oh,
was my
okay.
mistake. There really is no
Okay.
friction.
But
But,
you guys heard my comment about that earlier.
and the one,
Yeah,
I
about
guess-
13. Because I think that's just a loaded question. That's just, of course, people think, well, they don't believe that it paints a full picture of quality. Jess, and you said something, Jessica, you said something about which numbers?
Yeah, so I said that I would keep 11 if I had to pick one of these,
Uh-huh.
and I would keep 10 and 11 if we
Okay.
wanted to have more. I think that number 13 is what I'm going to call the Jack Schneider comment. Like that's the Jack Schneider question. And I've read the book. I've heard him speak a bunch of times. Like I'm not all that persuaded by that, because I
Is that
agree
the book,
with you. I think
the
it's
doorway, the somebody at the doorway? Is that book, the red cover?
I think he's at the Wolf at the Schoolhouse Door too, but his
That
book
one,
is like
that
a
one. Yes, okay.
better definition of school quality. So anyway, I think I would do 11 or 10 and 11, eliminating 12 and 13.
can I just say on the 13, my point actually was not to be, it wasn't meant to be a Jack Schneider thing. It was my effort to get at the question of, is it fair or not fair, and do it in a way that didn't use fair and not fair. So my mistake, but that's what
No, and I'm not picking on Jack. I think that's what his whole book and his whole scholarship around this gets at, which is fair, unfair, complete, incomplete.
But I guess, so my question to Jacques is, if complete, incomplete sounds Jack Schneider-ish and like, do we have enough elements? That, okay, put that aside. But do you not want to hear people say it's fair, it's not fair? I mean, I think that is kind of an important thing to find out. Or does it, or does it match, does the rating match your experience of the quality of your school? I mean, I just think we need something that gets at, do people, I think if we knew that people thought it was if everybody thought it was fair, I'll tell you, it would have an influence on me. If everybody thought it was unfair, I mean, I assume that would have an influence.
Ruth,
So my question is this, Ruth. What are you really trying to get from question number 13, for the simple fact that we already know that a majority, I mean, that's why we're here, feel some kind of way that it doesn't paint a complete picture of their school quality. So what is it that you're trying to pull out of question 13? What information, what purpose does it serve?
So it's really not about, is it complete or not? That was a failed effort on my part. It really is to know whether people think it's a fair rating. And I guess I don't think that we do know that everybody thinks it is or isn't a fair rating. I mean, do you feel like you know?
I think the way the question is worded, Ruth, when I read it, my instinct would be to say, I don't know that any rating could completely convey.
I know, and
my
that's what I'm
school's
taking
quality.
away. I agree. It's
Right.
it's a bad question. I'm taking that away. What it should be conveying, and it's not. So the questions, do we want, I think we do, a question that says, do you think it's the rating is fair? Do you think the rating is fair? That's really.
So what you're
important.
suggesting is that we change that to, do
Correct.
you feel that the star rating framework is fair?
Some wording like that.
Somewhere like along that line, if it's fair.
Exactly.
Okay. And we don't feel we have that in 10, because 10 is like, it's important to rate schools with a single rating and like grades. So we kind of get that, like, which of the following best reflects your view of rating a school?
I mean, let's see if this works. While people are thinking about this, let me ask Darren a technical question, which is thinking about trying to make this shorter.
Did we lose Ruth?
I thought that was my computer.
Oh,
Yeah, I think we lost Ruth. Let me let her know.
So it looks like we lost Ruth.
Yes. Sorry, it's loud out here.
Okay.
Let's see if she.
So in our last 15 minutes, or however long we decide to stay on, Darren, were there other things that you needed to know about this that Ruth has communicated with you? If she, till we get her back on, is there other questions that she had or you had?
Give me one moment. I'm gonna close my windows. It's just really loud out there. Jacques, I'll answer that question in just a moment.
Okay. And Carlene, Jessica, was there other things that you would like, or some other?
So
parts of this.
I'm gonna be, again, like, I feel like I'm the
You're not
pain.
the skunk, so stop
I'm the
using the
pain
term.
here.
You're not, stop
We-
using the term. Go ahead.
We as a board
Uh-huh.
have all but committed to making changes to the STAR framework, right?
Right.
Like, we've got a resolution that states some of the things we've heard about it. Like,
Mhm.
odds are 99.9% that we are going to recommend changes to the STAR framework.
That's correct. Mhm.
Why do we care if people think it's fair, since we have already committed to changing it?
I'm with you. Actually, I'm with you. You know, and I want to have full disclosure with you guys, you know, as far as timing and stuff like that. I did get to have my conversation with our new acting superintendent, and she's willing to look at this and look at our recommendations and stuff like that in the time frame that what she has on her plate. But just like you stated, that's a time off. She hasn't gotten any federal guidance on when we're going to re-implement the STAR rating, so to speak. So she's like, yeah, we don't have any guidance right now, but I'm always interested in trying to hear the recommendations that you guys do have.
I'm back.
Okay.
Sorry about
Jessica,
that.
I think, you know, in your absence, it's very fair to say that, you know, what we were discussing is that we already have committed to making recommendations. Everybody knows we're addressing this. So asking people, is it fair? Is that something that we really need to ask? Because I think that's implicit in what we're doing, is the best way I can say it. So that's why I go back to my original question. What are we trying to get out of that? Because I think at the end of the day, most people know that the reason that we are taking this particular project on is because we don't think, you know, it aptly, you know, rates schools, however we want to, what term we want to use and stuff like that. So we're taking this on to make it better, because it's not fair. You know, it doesn't treat every school correctly. It's not equitable. So do we need that question?
Speaking for me, I
Oh.
think it's not fair. I guess my sense is that there are people who think it is fair, because that's why there's a debate. If everybody believed that was unfair, I don't think we'd be in a debate about whether or not to have it.
Ruth,
I
I
mean-
think what I said to Jock is that we as a board, though, have committed to making changes. So there is a negligible percentage of a chance that we as a board don't make any recommended changes. So why do we care if other people think it's fair, since we as a collective have already decided that we're going to change it, or we're going to recommend changes to it? Haven't we already assumed an answer to that question?
Well, I think we can change it for a lot of different reasons. We can change, you know, there's a lot of reasons to change it. But I would assume, I mean, if part of what you're saying, Jessica, is that you understand that most people think it's unfair, that's a point that,
And I kind of have to agree. I think the act and the question are redundant, is the best way I can say, because we're already acting.
okay, I mean, if I can now say that both of you think that this rating is very unfair, and that's what most of the city thinks, that is important for me to know.
So Ruth, I
it's
don't want to put words, I don't want anyone to put words in my mouth. What I am saying
that's what
is
I'm asking.
whether or not people think it is unfair is not consequential to our work, because we as a board have committed to making changes because the majority of the board believes the rating to be unfair. I mean, our last resolution said that, when we said we think there's bias in the rating and changes need to be made.
Right.
Would I want to be quoted as Jessica Sutter thinks the STAR rating is unfair? No, please do not quote me as that. That is not what I'm saying.
Okay, then I guess I do come at it differently. I do think it's consequential, because part of the, I mean, yes, we want to make changes. We've said that, but how deep we make them, how much we make them, which changes we make, I think depends a lot on this, actually. So I actually, I'd probably be on the side of keeping it as opposed to some others, frankly, and it's a short one. But
I would have to go
I'm
with,
gonna, sorry, go.
yeah, I know we are limited on time and there are other topics to get into, and with all surveys, you can analyze the heck out of it, but it really kind of, revolves around doing it at some point to see what kind of information it's collecting. I think I would err on the side of just, then just collect information on what people feel is fair versus asking do people feel it's fair or not, especially in light of we already spent time on.
Right.
I'm sorry, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand what you're saying.
I get that.
Okay. Jock has it as the coach.
I get what she's saying, Ruth. Ruth is like collecting information about what you're looking for to make it fair, whatever the case may be, instead of asking the question, is it fair?
Okay, all right. So there's a consensus against including that. So we figured out one. That's good. All right, I think that one other thing so we're going to try to cut back that long section. We can cut that question out of the back. If we can, we will try to do a Form A and Form B so that middle set is shorter. I haven't heard from Darren on that. And then we'll time it and see where we are, and we'll try it out with some people. And we'll get rid of the fair question. So that's where I'm leaving this part. Everybody think I have that right? And then we're going to add in this stuff about try to help people find their star rating of their school. All right. The one other thing is, as I said at the beginning, we ended up having to revisit how that final activity got done. And since we're here, I thought we should show it. Darren, are you there to show that?
Yes. I'll pull it up, right?
And actually what might be quicker, I'm sorry, Darren, why don't you very quickly, let's just take a minute to look at the trade-off slide, because that was important to everybody. There's been some revision on the wording. It's the only substantive thing in terms of the slide thing that has shifted since Can
you all see that?
Yes.
And here's what I think what we should do is send, Jessica, I know you're going on vacation. Is this something we can send you? And on this one thing, ask, actually, no, we want to send this out today. Never mind. Can people look, does that look fine? It's mainly just some wording changes. I don't think it's substantive changes, but since it was sensitive and we're all here, I thought we should look at it.
One thing I'd like to note, originally, there was mention of dashboards in an earlier slide. We attempt to define what a dashboard is, as it's mentioned here.
I have one question. Are we sure on the single summative rating that it's an okay thing to say, that because ESSA requires proficiency rates and these are skewed by race income, a rating will have a racial income bias? Reason I say that is, like, are we condemning every state that has a rating that, like, they all are usually using racially biased ratings? No one has been able to correct for it statistically?
We could say in DC, I mean,
Great.
Or a rating may have a racial income bias as opposed to will?
I mean, I'm fine with changing it to the may have.
Yeah. Wordsmithing helps.
Yeah. I think that's a good point. I mean, I think there's, huge data that suggests it, but you're right. We don't know about every other state. I think putting in May is a good idea.
Just save us headaches from people who
No,
like to cause headaches.
I'm with you. And actually, Darren, can you put up the alternative wording for that second con, which I think was much clearer? Do you have that?
I'm sorry, this one right here.
Yeah.
I don't immediately have that.
Um,
I might have
yeah,
to
I
close
think
this
I can
out.
get. Hold on. I think I can find it. Here, I got it. Here, I'm gonna put this in the chat. So that's all, I think that's clear wording for the second there.
One thing to note for that last don't reflect school quality, e.g. first grade reading score, that would be more of a school performance indicator.
If you want to put quality / performance, that'd be fine.
So something like
Just / performance, school quality / performance. Okay. All right, can I move on or no?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
All
And
right.
I have a hard stop at 6.
Okay, so we have 4 minutes to just quickly look at this last activity, which, like I say, it's a, as you have all noted, it's really been, an effort to try to figure out how to do all this in these virtual activities and also to try to reflect the different views that everybody has. So this is what we have. I feel pretty good about it. We don't have a lot of time to mess with it, but I did want to show it to you. If people have a big problem, then we have a big problem. But Darren, can you put that up?
the activities.
Yeah, so this is the final culminating activity. And if you remember the last time we looked at it, it was, it was great stuff, but it was really too complicated to go through. So this is now what Darren has. So this just introduces it and just flip through the next, so you can just see each of the. So this will the speaker, the presenter, having gone through the entire slideshow, right? Now you're just going to say for each of these, what do you think? And for each one, what do you think of whatever's the relevant point on it? So, the first one is South Dakota. What are your thoughts on using a summative score rating like South Carolina has? And the next one, New Hampshire, I think is, what do you think about not rating the indicators, not having a summative score? Next one. And here's odometer scores. It's a different way to look at it. How do you think of that? And then go to the next one. And this, by the way, Jessica, this is what I was referring to before, is for Illinois, we don't use it to talk about rating, not rating. We just sort of say it has this other information, the comparisons within the district and comparisons. It's sort of disaggregated by demographic, and it has the school environment stuff. And then and then the idea is we would just, put each of these up. People could put it into the chat. This is what I think, this is my comment. And then we would say, the presenters would save the chat, send it to Darren, and he could sort of pull out what was sort of comment on it. And plus each of us as presenters could work, present off of the chat. Oh, someone says this, interesting, raise questions, however, and move on. And then there's a final slide just that sort of repeats the question, so that if people wanted to go back through the questions, they could, but it wouldn't be necessary. You showed that last one, Darren? And it sort of really just restates the things that have already been up there, but it's sort of a placeholder for additional discussion questions before it all ends. So with 1 minute, if anybody has a concern with that, I hope that it really reflects the best that could be done given the situation. Sort of the idea of having a culminating activity that pulls stuff together and does it in a simple enough way. If anybody wants to raise some concerns here or afterwards by email, please do. And also, if it's fine, say so now or send an email so we know.
Thanks, everyone. Like I said, I have a hard stop.
All right. Goodbye, Jacques. Thank you very much.
Talk to you guys
I
later.
gotta jump
Thank
too.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
All right. So let us know if there's any issue there, but otherwise we'll assume it's fine. And great seeing you all. Goodbye.
All right, bye.
Bye.